Hi, this is Christina Dubois-Nugent, and now we're going to talk about risk graph for specifically on butterflies. So in the example that leads to all of this recent recording interaction is through Disney. It's a short-term 10-day trade, so let me put it on the correct day. And then from there, what we're looking at is how to read the risk graph. How is it different from a debit spread and a regular bull call spread in this example? And then seeing that if I use my mid quote pricing, and I've position sized this to be equal to less than $1,000. So I was able to do 15 contracts. The real focus here is how to read the risk graph. That's what I really want to focus in on. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this picture, and I'm going to do a 1 by 2 by 1. So I'm going to do a standard first level, which would basically look like this information underneath. So instead of having times 15, which 60 times 15 equals 900, I'm just going to look at one contract at first. So if I would hit the right button. So let's hit 1 by 2 by 1, and then I'm going to hit risk graph 2. So I'm not hitting update because I do want to keep it in the view that I was looking at. Oh, boy. All right, so maybe I do need to hit update. So let me do that. I'll hit update. That will change it to 1 by 2 by 1. And so there you see, that's how much it costs me is $60. So let's kind of go through the math there of how it comes up to be $60. So first let's talk about the pieces of the trade. On a butterfly, it's got 3 legs. So let's draw a picture of the 3 legs. So let's go in and draw that picture. So basically what I'm looking at when I'm creating a modern version risk graph is if I have 105 as the center, I'm selling that times 2. My 103 in this particular example, which is a Disney example, is a buy leg. I'm looking at 2 points distance on both sides. So I'm going to also then have 2 points here, which is going to give me the 107, and that's going to give me the picture of that we're going to see here shortly. But here's my 103, 105, 107. Now, as I indicated, if you listen to the earlier versions of part 1, 2, and 3 on butterflies, is understanding that butterflies that have a 2-step workhorse scenario, where my 103s, and my orange is always going to be where my stock is trading now, but my 103s are slightly in the money. So the 103s have some real value if the stock's trading at 104.12. My 103s have how much real value? The stock's trading at 104.12 minus the right to buy the stock at 103. I have real value of $1.12. Now, I'm paying $1.74 for that particular option. So I have real value of 112, and the difference is time and volatility. The 105s, however, are very different. The 105s are actually out of the money because the right to buy the stock at 105 has no real value when the stock's trading at 104.12. And then the 107s are even further out of the money, therefore being very inexpensive. So my first level workhorse is the option that I'm buying. What I want is for those to keep as much value as possible. My second level workhorse is the options that I'm selling. I'm selling twice as many of them. And what do I want to happen to options that I have to eventually buy back? If I sell them for 65 cents, I want to buy them back for a cheaper amount of money. That's my second level of Workhorse, and these options on the top are just for margin requirements, so I don't have to have an issue with unlimited margin, unlimited risk exposure. As you can see, the debit that I pay for this transaction is the most that I can risk in this trade. If I was to say, well, I don't really need to spend the 16 cents on this particular trade, let me hit update. Let's see if it'll let me do it. What I want to show you is how, without having, see, it's not letting me do this. It literally has a unlimited risk potential here, and not what you at all would be interested in taking a look at. So the most I can risk is the debit. What's the most I can make? Well, a lot more than the debit spread if you happen to have listened to the risk graph on debit spread example. That's hitting the bullseye. I don't expect to hit the bullseye, but I want to be able to look for at least 100% return even on a short-term trade. I'm looking for that. So that's how you read the top portion here. How do you come up with your maximum profit to risk? You take your 139.9 profit potential, and I divide that by my debit, and that gives me my best case scenario. What's the most I can lose is my maximum risk here. So when I look at the actual risk graph, it's a little tight. I'd like to expand it a little bit. So let's take a look at 100 to 115. So I'm going to zoom in quite a bit, just like I did with the debit spread. So I'm under stock limits. I'm going to look at 100 to 115, and then I'll take a look at that. So let's apply those settings to our current risk graph. And what I want to do is show you how to read the risk graph, the important features of the risk graph. So what you're seeing here is, here's the stock trading at 104.12. That's what you're seeing right here. And what you want to see in a good-looking butterfly that's close to at the money is, notice that if nothing happens as far as stock movement, if the stock stays at 104.12, do I have the potential to make money from today to a third of the way through the trade, which is basically 3 days into the future as of when we put on the trade, and then 2/3 of the way through the trade. As you can see, I am in the profit zone. Now I'm going to need to be in this trade for longer than four days to expiration in order for me, based on stock movement alone, for me to be able to make money. So what I'm seeing here is, as the stock moves into the zone, which gets to 105, if it happens before 223, I'm not going to make 100% return. I'm going to make somewhere around $30 for about $60 worth of spent, so about 50% return, which isn't bad for 7 days. But really what we want to do is, how do I see the profit potential as to when I think I'm going to trade it? So let me take it from 0 days to expiration. Let's take it to 2 days to expiration. If you recall, through one of the earlier recordings, I went in and showed you under the risk graph settings to be able to go in and change risk graph days. I know this is a little small to see, but 2 days to expiration. I'm going to apply that. My black line goes away. I'm now looking at a magenta color, which is going to give me a better gauge of how much I can make if I take this to 2 days to expiration and it goes to a stock price of 105. And I guess this is just based on time decay and stock movement. A third component is volatility. How will volatility impact this trade? And as stocks go up, what tends to happen to volatility? Volatility tends to go down. And though it is pretty close to the bottom part of where the volatility is now, if volatility goes down to 14 or if it goes down to 11, you can see that the timelines are going in the right to the right, which is in the right direction for profit potential, and from red line to blue line, green line, and then the magenta line, there's a slope there that allows me to make even more money based on just volatility. can I gauge that in the trade? Yes, actually, I can estimate and say, all right, if I go from like 16 to 14, what kind of percentage change is that? So 2% divided by a 16 is basically a 13% change in volatility. So if I go and say I want to change volatility from where it is today and take 12 or 13% away from that. So I'm going to make that. And again, all I'm saying is I'm going to take 1% and I'm going to minus 0.125. I'm going to put in a value here of 0.88 to round up, let's say. I'm going to apply that information to the risk graph, apply those settings, and then you'll see that everything actually gets moved over just a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at that as it comes up. Now, it's best to see it as before and after, so I'd have to show you both before and after. But what I want you to realize is just the power of being able to look at the risk graph, and it's still thinking here. Here we go. As we look at the risk graph, and it brought it back to a value of, so let me make sure that I have it 2 days to expiration, so that part I have to reset it because it always goes back to 0 as a default, especially when I change just one parameter there. So if I have a decrease in volatility, I can make 100% profit. That's what I'm looking at. Now let's see what really happens in the trade. So let's go in and look at what really happens for this particular case study that we're looking at. Over time, I can go in and say, all right, let's look at what happens to the underlying stock. So let's go to the risk graph. Sorry, let's go to, here we go. Let's actually look at the stock chart, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up a little bit so we can see it. Starting on the date of 215, expecting it to go to 105. I'm going to say I'm wrong. If it goes down to 105, chances are I'd actually bring that a little bit higher. And then let's go plus a day. Plus a day, plus a day, plus a day. So you can see that really on the date of 223, we see that the stock gets right, it literally closes right at 105. So let's go and take a look. If we change it to 223, what happens with the trade? So we're changing it, and then we're going to hit go. Now the issue is that it doesn't appear that on 223, and I'm waiting for it to update, that it's going to give me a whole lot of profit potential. So here it's saying it's only showing me actually about a 20% profit potential. What happened to volatility? Well, volatility did go down a little bit, but not to 14, so we didn't get the impact of profit potential there. And then it's a matter of understanding, how does time decay impact? One more day in this trade gives me $190 worth of profit based on where the stock is trading now. But I also have a huge impact related to stock movement. So delta gamma is something else that we'll talk about, making sure we understand the pros and cons of staying in this trade one more day. So let's go plus a day. So it went down a little bit, plus a day. It actually popped higher, still near 105. Let's take a look at the impact of 225. Then we'll hit go. And then with 2 days left to options expiration, it's now gone past that level of 105 mark. It's actually at 105.57. I'm showing a 61% return potential with 2 days left. Very good place to take off the trade because it looks like it's got momentum moving higher. You know, you'd have to judge that call. If you go one more day, it actually ends up going down a bit, and then on options expiration, it ends up being at 104.08. So each day with a risk graph tool like this, you can go plus a day, and you can see the actual impact the trade does. And understand that to put on a trade and be in and out of a trade in less than 10 days, to be able to make a solid return, and if you took it one more day, you'd be over 100%. That's a little close for me, but understanding that you have the potential in a butterfly to make easily 50% return as long as the stock does a little bit of movement. And those are the things that I really want to focus in on the butterfly. Thanks, guys.